Okay, this is the beast. I gotta say it's heavy. I think I busted my fufu valve. Certainly the biggest little engine I bought. Just everything's big. Big carby, huge big muffler, which I probably won't use anyway. And the tank's huge. Right, all the usual warnings. Key start. Okay, where's the key? Oh, there we are. There's the key. And just a couple of wires, a couple of terminals straight onto a battery. That doesn't look very hard. Where does it say 16 horse? It doesn't. How you going, guys? We're back in the shed again today. If you're new to the channel, I'm Jim from Doing Stuff. So this is part number 2 of the golf buggy restoration, rebuild. Yeah, probably should just get it going. If you missed part 1, just click up on the link over here. But yeah, part 1's pretty good. Really good. It's freaking awesome. So getting back to this new engine that we just unboxed. Not really into unboxing stuff, but anyway. It did come with a keyway, but I don't need a keyway for this instance because we've got the other part of the torque converter has arrived also. If I can get it out. There we go. Ta-da! So it's a 40 series torque converter, primary clutch with an inch 25.4 mil Jasuda shaft, and it also has a built-in keyway. So if we just sort of stick it on just like that, whammo, we have a torque converter. Fits perfectly, doesn't have any real play, and all I got to do is pop a little bolt in there with a washer out on the end, and that'll keep it in place. The only thing is, I've taken a few basic measurements of the frame and where the seat comes down and the height and a few other little tiny dimensions. I need to take a few things off. It's too high. So factory muffler's coming off, which was going to come off anyway. The fuel tank will have to come off. I can certainly relocate it or make another one. And the airbox. Now that's going to be a little bit tricky because the way it's designed is the filter's up the top here, and then it has this tube that goes all the way down into there. So that's the actual intake for the carburetor. I know you can buy an adapter which bolts onto there, but I may have to try and make one. See how we go with that. But and then put like a pod filter or something on it, and then it'll won't have all this height. So, and the height is the problem. I'll be relocating the switch gear, like the ignition, to where the factory one is on the front of the golf buggy. So we sort of need to get it down to this height. So let's start unbolting some things off the top here. Seems a shame because engineers and the factories and all the smart boffin guys. Oh, hang on, this is a Chinese one. Yeah, so these guys just copied everybody else, and they just made it look the same as a Honda. So anyway, we'll start pulling some stuff off and get into it. Here we go. Sometimes you have to be a little bit careful when you're disconnecting all the wiring, whether it's like what I'm doing is relocating a few things and probably going to extend a few things with all the wiring, but actually this has been done relatively well. Every plug on this is either different or it's got a male instead of a female. So if you look at those two, one's a male, one's a female, so I can't get those in the wrong plugs. And this one's just got a blade clip on it, which goes on the starter there. And the other, this wire goes on the starter. And then the earth goes straight to the block, which is common. So I've just put all of this aside, and I shouldn't be able to be too far off of just putting it all straight back together. Like the yellow one, it's the low oil light. But if you're in doubt and you're not quite sure, just get a bit of masking tape and a pen and just put it on each individual wire, and you can either number it or name it and write a detailed diagram. But this one, they've actually done a pretty good job in the way of keeping the identification part of it relatively simple. So we shouldn't have too many troubles when we try and wire it up once the engine itself is once it's in the buggy itself. So a little bit of looks a bit bare, but it shouldn't be too much trouble. I'll just put a couple of rags and put the nuts over these so the carburetor doesn't come off, because it just slips on there at the moment. And block up the holes. Like this one is just a breather that goes back into the air filter box. Like there's the breather port there. So nothing's too tricky, and if you're willing to give it a go, just disassemble those few things that you don't need just for the height. I know you can buy kits, not really readily in Australia, but you can buy kits like a mounting plate that sits over the top here, and you can put other things on the top if you're relocating your fuel tank or something like that. But it gives me really easy access to get to the carburetor, because we've got to put a throttle cable directly to the carburetor. This little, I know it looks kind of funny, but it's actually plastic little lever on here. It's just what happens with Chinesium. But it's got a little factory, if I can get the camera right, it's got the little plastic fuel tap and the choke lever, and everything still works. Now the only downside with the choke lever is that cover was keeping this in there, so I've got to work out something to keep that in place, like something that keeps the weight on there, so the choke can still be used, or I can hook up a cable to it, which would be really nice. And the fuel, so I don't know if the fuel will ever get turned off once it's under the seat, but I'll have to try and work something out. Now I'm tempted to take off the recoil, the pull start, because I don't actually need it with the electric start, and no one's going to lift the seat, especially myself, lift the seat of the golf buggy to try and start it. So we're going to have to rely on the old electric start, which, well, that's what it's designed for. So we'll I've got to hook a chain onto the top, onto these mounting points, a chain or a strap or something, and try and get it level. So when it's in when I try and suspend it in the buggy, I'll use the engine lifter to suspend it, and then I can make all the bracketry up to it. So it shouldn't be too difficult, just a little bit of mucking around. As always, if there's something worth doing, you know, got to do it right. So we'll just take off this recoil and a little bit more fiddling, and then I'll hook it up with a couple of slings or something. Let's get into it. Well, this is where we're up to at the minute. Talking about is just sort of sitting on there, and the belt's in place, and I've got this engine crane which is making it so much easier. The engine itself, like the packaging, was 32 kilos or something, but the engine itself's still be close to 28, I suppose, by itself, so it's a little bit awkward just to maneuver in there. So I've just hung it off those two little chains and makes it a little bit easier. I've removed all the stuff off the top there, the cable and bracketry. That was the factory throttle cable, and it just sat on top of this pin. It's under there, it's a bit hard to see it. So it's sort of just sitting there in the way, so it's not quite in line yet, but it just fits under there. I'll put the air cleaner connector to where the air filter is, or air filter box, whichever, just so we don't get dirt in the carby or any of those other hoses. So that's why that's sitting on there at the moment. I can't undo that tall bolt there, that long one. It doesn't seem to want to undo, so maybe I didn't try hard enough. But it's kind of sitting about where I want it at the moment. So as you can see, that's why I took off all the tank and the airbox and the exhaust, because it just wouldn't have fit under that tube there, which is where the seat height and everything's mounted. So now that it's close, I can sort of now work out the brackets, you know, the ones I was talking about in part one, the other video, to go from that one over there to that one under there with the big rubber blocky thing, which I got there. Try and make them work somehow. If not, I'll just do something else some other way. There's always a way. One of the great mottos my grandfather told me: there is always a way. Whether you do it or someone else will do it, there's always a way. So I've got to fiddle with those linkages and everything. I wanted to try and keep the governor operational, because it is a standard motor. I didn't really want it over revving or anything and going nuts, because it's only got standard valve springs and things like that inside, so I didn't want it to go crazy. I think it's about 3,300 is the RPMs on these things, or 3,800, something like that. So there's plenty of torque just as a stocky motor. So let's get into making some engine mounts, see if we can get it close. So here we go. Engine base is all done. That was a bit of work. It's all sitting in place, all cut. All the bolt holes are there. Hopefully they're right. That base is over there. It's all welded up. The only thing I haven't done is put a couple of welds on there. But besides that, it's got all angle underneath, cross bracing. I even allowed extra room to get that belt out so I can change it without having to pull the engine base out. That'd be a bit silly, wouldn't it? So there's a couple of little welds. I'll do them off camera and I'll give this a quick paint job and then we'll get into doing the install, the actual install. Okay, here we go. Well, morning everybody. There's a new day to the buggy. Off camera I've gone and welded that bracket on. Looks very nice, very nice. Nicely done. Put a little bit of colour over where I'd cut off that other doodad. I don't know why I brushed up this rusty old piece of crap. I didn't need to remove it, it's just doesn't look great. So I'm still undecided on whether I'm going battery on that side or battery on this side. So if I go battery on this side, I'll be definitely cutting those out and putting something over the top there. Not that it matters, no one's ever going to see that. And it's not structural, so so that's done. I've taken all the gunk off for the top of the gearbox, transmission, rear axle, whatever we want to call it. And I've also, that's all dry now. U-Butte engine plate, all looks very nice. And rubber mount's just sitting there. Got a no-lock nut for that. And with the exhaust, because it had this big cumbersome sort of, I don't know, it's big, there it is over there. There's a big cumbersome looking thing. Anyway, so I've managed to find a couple of old pipes and bits and just put little extensions on it because it had really thick cast steel there in the previous one. So at the moment it's just a little straight pipe just to get it away from everywhere, and then I can just sort of add on to it and either go down or to a muffler or something. I'll probably have to put a flex joint in there or a slip joint at least, so it's not so noisy. Besides that, I've still got the connector thing for the carby. It's still sitting there. I may be able to just cut the top off of this and put the actual air cleaner itself and sit it on top there. Possibly, just depends on how it's located. I think the tube, it gets really close to the tube here, so I don't think we're going to have a lot of movement with the engine base, even under load. I think it'll still only be a few mil, but you never know. We'll get to that problem when it arises, but for the moment I'm going to drop this down off the stands and take it outside and give it a good old bath, like all this mud and dirt and grime and crud all over it, and get all this tidied up inside here, so then when I reassemble things I don't need to have to re-clean anything. It'll be tidy as. Still waiting for the upholstery to come back. It's at the upholsterers, the seats and the backrest. He said a couple of days, so let's get it down on the ground and off to the water blaster. Well, how nice does that look? No mud anywhere. Amazing what a little bath does. All looks pretty neat and tidy. So now let's start putting some stuff in there and start hooking some things up. Make it hopefully go soon. Here we go. Let's get into it. Oh, engine's all in, bolted down, base plates in, nice and tidy, torque converters on. Now I was hoping to have that air cleaner sort of, but there's not enough room between there and there, so I'm gonna have to go back to what I was first thinking and unbolting off the front there and making a little elbow that comes around this way and have the pod filter come out this way, or if I can make it go straight up, the pod filter will fit in there. Here's that pod filter I was talking about. Nice neat little one, has about a 52 mil sort of opening on it. I can either try and make an elbow so it comes out this way, or maybe one that goes over there and replaces that box. Haven't sort of decided yet. As long as wherever I put it, it's out of the weather, or the wheels don't splash up stuff. Like, I mean, there's the shocky right there, so, and the wheel's just behind that mudguard. So I've got to try and give it some sort of protection. If I can do a U shape, or I don't know yet. Got to make the flange so it bolts onto there first. That'll be the next trick. But there's always a way. I don't really want to put it straight on there, it'll be in the way of the shocky. So, yeah, probably there somewhere, or directly up. Probably a bit safer if it's directly up. Now the exhaust, I've got that little elbow on it. I'm just not quite sure whether I'm coming straight out or curl around and go underneath that tappet cover. Not that I'll ever need to take it off, and go down underneath, or just go down over the top and straight down out this way. I'd like to put some sort of a muffler on it, but I don't want it hanging too far out. Like if it's way back here somewhere, it's relying on those two little bolts on the manifold there. Not the manifold, on the port. It's relying on those two little bolts to hold that weight, and if there's a lot of vibration, chances are it's going to snap somewhere, and I don't really want to snap those bolts, so shorter the better, I guess. Maybe just make a little muffler there and just have a little short piece go down. Haven't quite worked it out yet. I think I've worked out the throttle cable without too much trouble. Oh yeah, I put on the whatsy cover again, but I've just clocked it. You can see the writing's not straight up and down, so I've just unbolted it and turned it right around, and then it fits on there well, so I can actually reach it from standing on the ground, just tilting the seat forward if I had to. More of an emergency than anything. So to the throttle cable, here's the throttle cable here, the linkage, not real complex, and the way these things are designed is you loosen that up and you put your little cable through this little nut. There's a nut there with a hole in it, see the hole? So you're meant to put your cable through there, but I'd rather not. I'd rather keep this little clevis and the clevis pin. So I've just got to put something off there and just put the other end where the adjuster nuts are on here somewhere and work it from there. So that's the throttle hookup. I don't quite know how I'm going to do the choke, because the factory choke cable runs out here and it's got to go way up to the carby, so I'll have to work that out if we do a choke at all. I guess these things sort of need it. You may or may not have seen I was putting Never Seize, like an anti-seize type product on those bolts, so I don't have a future problem, which would be really nice not to have those issues again, getting them off. They weren't too bad, just any longer than they probably would have been. The old body came up pretty good with the water blast, finally. A couple of marks. I knocked the paint out of, that's all meant to be black in between there, and there's still some bits in there. Not sure what I can do with that, but it looks pretty tidy now. I put a bit of slime in this front wheel and pumped it up, and it looks like it's holding air at the moment, which would be really nice. So what I've got left to do is, air cleaner, the exhaust, do the wiring, and then put the ignition switch in that hole there in the middle. The wiring isn't too hard. Then work out which side for the battery, which also there's another issue, is where do I put the fuel tank? It has to be above the carburetor, and closer to the carburetor would be nice. So maybe the fuel tank has to go that side and the battery on this side. I haven't decided yet. It's all coming together. But I think I'm kind of running out of time for today. I spent 2 days on it so far. All this rear end come up really tidy. That's the other thing I've got to do is, you probably saw when I was lifting it, this inner guard to come off. There's a couple of rivets in here that I've got to drill out, and I might just put Tech screws or something in there just to hold it together. And I've got to take the wheel off to do it because it's sort of hidden in there to get. It's a bit difficult to get to, so I've got to take the wheels off. But I've got an idea for these wheels. Like this one, she's pretty smooth on the outside, and most of our property is either grass or gravel, so I don't hold much hope for that, because it's also not just the traction I need for driving. I need it for braking as well, because the brakes are on the rear. This is virtually a brand new tyre on this side, the other one's bald, and I don't have another one to match. But I do have a little trick. I got a couple of tyres off something else that might just work, so just hang in there. I was hoping to have this finished today, but it's just too much stuff to do, too many little things to get on with. So that's the end of part 2 on the golf buggy. It is a great little build, this one. I'm enjoying it. So hang in there, catch up with us on the next one, and we'll be planning to have it running, and a few little options with different tyres, and I'll try and get a couple other little things done off camera during the week, and catch up with it next week, eh? So you guys stay safe, and thanks for watching, and get out in the shed and get doing stuff. See you later. Bye.